welcome all. Just to kind of relieve any pressure from you, you get to watch and we get to do a song and dance. But really, we're trying to come up with some things that may fit in that toolbox of yours, and they're tools that people in the trenches are using. So they are used by somebody. There's just not an idea or something shiny, but they are tools that will be used. We also, and Kathy mentioned that we're going to be recording these sessions. We will be posting them for a considerable period of time, and it becomes resources for you and anyone else who wants to go to the site, review or pick up some things that you may have missed, or you wanted to take a look at it again, or maybe you missed a session, or maybe you we're passing it out to your colleagues and ours out in the community throughout the state and maybe beyond, who would like to maybe get a little bit of a flavor of what the people in the trenches are using effectively. The other thing that's going to be coming soon that some of our power users are doing is creating 2-minute videos of just tools. Make them. They're going to be short. They're quick hitters on all the tools. Not all the tools, but as many tools as we can put together. It's been a request by the After School Consortium in the state of Oregon to come up with some things that help their providers with their families and their students on the tools, tricks of the trade, the tools that the kids are using, and so we're going to also make that available. So if you have something that that you think is working well, and you can create a little 2-minute video, you can send links to us, and we can post that on the Oregon CSTA page, and try to create the support system that will help people be able to do the best job they possibly can. So we've put the, we have all of us have stories about what the fall is going to look like, and there's a lot of fear and trembling about how we're going to be able to do this online teaching, full-on online teaching, and there's a lot of questions. We won't get to it tonight, but we all have them, and we can maybe approach some of those later on in this session. And keep in mind that we have one more session formally next week on the 20th. And to set the stage for that, will be, in addition to this agenda, and some of the things on this agenda may spill to next week, but we'll be hearing from Chris Winnica from Century High School on web coding and what he does for online teaching. His curriculum is a little bit more web coding rich than some of the rest of us. We'll also be hearing from Sherwood High School, where I teach, and what's going on there more formally if we don't get to it today, and I doubt that we will. A little bit more on Agile next week, and a little deeper dive there, plus things that may come up today or between now and then that we want to include, and we're going to do the best we can to do that. Just so you know, Oregon Computer Science Teacher Association, we've been around for 30 years. I probably mentioned this last week, but and I'll probably say it next week, is that our mission is to help you become really good at what you do in your classroom so that your students can be successful. And so our mission has always been to try to do that for free. And we are currently able to do that on a shoestring. And thanks for everyone. And that's pretty much volunteering their time. In one sense, there's a little bit of a stipend for leaders in this PD, but not a lot. And we just want you to be able to have resources that'll help your students become great. So with that said, I'm going to introduce, and you saw Ginger last week, but Ginger from Slalom is going to give us kind of the overview, 10-15 minute overview of Agile and how that can be used for project management. And so Ginger, take it away.
Thank you for the introduction, Terrell, and good to see all of you again. I see some similar faces from last Thursday, so thanks for having us back. Terrell asked us to come back and give a bit of overview about Agile. So last week we wove in some things, some tools like a Kanban and a retrospective that you might be able to use in the classroom. And I think that inspired Terrell to say, come back and tell us more. So I'm just gonna, I've never been asked to talk about Agile in 10 minutes or less. So I will just start by saying that Agile is a philosophy and a culture, probably at its biggest umbrella, and it takes years and years and years to master. But it certainly has a lot of applications and in terms of just everyday application, everyday use. And in the classroom even, just really excited to be here to share a few ideas about, well, first just share what is Agile. And then I think as you learn about what it is, you're gonna just have your mind explode with all of the ways you can really apply it in the classroom. And I'm just going to scratch the surface tonight with what is Agile. And if Terrell and you all are gracious enough, we'll come back next week and give you some examples of how to actually use it. Either you or your students can use it to manage your classroom projects as well. So I'll try to share my screen here. Let's see. There we go.
So in Ginger, I'm just reading the chat. It's looking like people are around the 2 to 3 mark. We got a couple of 4 users, just to frame that for you.
Wonderful, thank you all. I'll start by just sharing a little story of, I think I shared this with you, Kathy and Terrell, a few weeks ago, but part of my day job is helping companies and organizations adopt Agile ways of working. And I think through all that experience, I have learned over the last few years that Agile is not just for developing software. Agile is really a way of thinking. It's a set of values and principles that you can apply to anything in your life. Someday, if I can quit my job, I'm going to write a book called Everyday Agile, because it really is about every day there's something you can do in an Agile way. It's about a way of doing things, much more than just a way of building software. So, well, the story I'll share is that, well, I'll just jump ahead here. This is my actual Kanban. It's on my wall in my hallway at home. My partner and I have a stand-up every Sunday evening where we go through our home projects, some all the chores that need to happen, or any kind of construction projects we're trying to do ourselves to the house, and we manage those projects with this Kanban board that we have on the wall. So you can certainly use this to manage your curriculum in the classroom, or students can use it to manage the projects that you give them around, say, Python programming, for example. So lots of ways to apply it, but I just wanted to start out with, we use this at home to manage our home projects. And the other story I'll share is one of my colleagues does the same thing with his family, and he has a 4-year-old. And they were, Sunday evening, he was doing his family stand-up, and his 4-year-old ran up to the Kanban on the wall and had 2 sticky notes and put 2 sticky notes up in the backlog. And one said cuddle, and the other one said Netflix, watch Netflix. So even a 4-year-old can do it. So what is Agile? It is really, I'm just gonna, again, to set expectations, really hard to explain Agile in less than 12 months, but I'm gonna cram it into 5 minutes here. So what is Agile? It's been around for a while. For those who are old enough to remember the Beatles and the waterfall way of building software, it's a lot harder to move away from waterfall to Agile. That is a whole nother conversation I'm not gonna really touch on here, but it's been around really since the early 2000s. If you jump to when The Lord of the Rings came out in 2001, there was a group of, and you can Google this, the Agile Manifesto. So it really started out with a group of software engineers, and I believe they all got together at the ski house in Utah, and they talked about all the things that were not working with software development. And they invented a new way to build software, and hence the word Agile was born with their Agile Manifesto. And it's been around for 20, 30 plus years. Lots of organizations are now using this, and now even in school. So I'm going to share a few stories at the very end about a lot of the schools that are using Agile in the classroom. So if you Google like Agile for educators or Agile in the classroom, there are so many really exciting, inspiring stories out there of schools who have created Agile classrooms and are really finding that it's a great way to engage students and create a safe and transparent and collaborative environment in the classroom. And as we move into a virtual classroom in the fall, I think Terrell was saying that these ideas really apply now more than ever. Like, we are getting thrown into a whole new way of teaching in the fall, and there's so many things that we're trying to do differently. So it's a great opportunity to really take a challenge and turn it into an opportunity and try some new things out. So just what is Agile? It is what it's not. I think there are a lot of misconceptions out there of what it is or isn't. It's not a methodology or process, actually. It is a set of values and principles. And if you think about it's a set of values and principles, then it opens up your mind to all of the different ways you can use it, including in the classroom. So talking a bit about the manifesto, where it came from and what this group of software developers did in this ski house in Utah. They came up with these 4 guiding principles of, they really wanted to value the things on the top more than the things on the bottom. So, I mean, we're thinking about how do we apply these things in the classroom, but given that we're teaching computer science, we're kind of doing a meta learning exercise here where we're learning what Agile is and how to apply it in the classroom as students or teachers to manage our classroom projects. But we're also learning about what it is, and that will set them up for career and job interviews in the future as well, because this is the modern way of doing things now. So the manifesto, again, was the things on the top matter more than the things on the bottom. So it's not to say that process and documentation aren't important. We still need those things, but they're less important than having working software or producing value quicker. Really getting something out there that we can test and use and really put our hands on and get some feedback on it so that we can iterate and improve it and get value out the door faster. So could spend more time on this, but I'll just stop there for 1 minute and see if anyone has any questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
Outside of the classroom, what's the value of the completed category on the Kanban? What, like at home, for instance, what would be the value of that category at all? If it's done, right?
What are you saying? What is the value of the done category? Having the done column?
Right. Outside of any place where outer accountability doesn't, outside of maybe a place where outer accountability doesn't really matter, or maybe I'm wrong about that. I want to hear your rationale.
No, that's a great question. I think this is just really my opinion, but I think there are a couple reasons that the done column is valuable. One, it does provide transparency into what's being done. It doesn't mean you need to leave it up there forever, but it does provide transparency. And so part of using a Kanban, part of the value of it is the visualization. It's like a signboard almost, or a billboard that anyone can see at any time and see what work has been done versus what's in progress or not started. So if you think about what is the value of that in a classroom, it gives you as a teacher more transparency to see where students are with their work. It certainly has the accountability answer you gave around having accountability for getting things done. But it's really not, I guess, in the Agile world, not so much about getting things done. It's about producing value faster so that you can iterate and learn faster so that you can repeat the cycle again. So with students, I would say it's not so much about getting things done and showing that it's done, but providing something that's usable and tangible that you can test and learn from. And if you make a mistake, that's okay. It's not about right or wrong, or I did this wrong and now I'm punished, or getting failure grade. It's more about what did I lose and improve and do better in the next sprint, So that's kind of the philosophy behind Agile. So does that answer your
Oh,
question?
that really helps, Ginger. I can see that. Thank you.
So just really quickly on those values, since we talked about Agile as being a set of values and principles more than a set of methodologies. These are some of the kind of principles that we talked about a lot. So if you think about which ones of these really jump out at you as being something you can apply in the classroom. So on the upper left-hand, student satisfaction or customer satisfaction. In this case, your customers are your students. Or maybe parents are your customers, but it's really about making them front and center. Everything you do should be about serving your students or your parents or whomever your customers are. So in the case of building software, we always want to get feedback continuously from our customers so that we ensure that we're building the right thing for them along the way. So if you apply that to the classroom, you might want to get more regular and feedback from your students. So we're trying some new things out this week. On Friday, you might every Friday pause and say, what worked, what didn't work? What can we learn from the new thing we tried this week? And then how do we want to do it differently next week? A few other, well, I'll stop talking actually. Which other principles here jump out at you as something that would apply in the classroom? No wrong answer here.
I like the sustainability piece because it tells us what kind of pace we can afford to keep and what what shouldn't be rushed and what can be rushed along and things like that.
Yeah, it's this idea of making continuous progress, continuous improvement. And then another one that I wanted to highlight was this idea of self-organizing, along with trust and empower. Those were two that really jumped out at me as being relevant to the classroom, is this idea of building self-organizing teams of students. They're, in the new virtual world, there's so much that they have to do on their own. They may not get it all from you in that 1 hour or 2 hours a day they get to spend with you. So how can they self-organize as a team to implement the projects that they have to do? Or this whole idea of trust and empowerment. So in the corporate world, the old way of doing things was very hierarchical, very command and control. You can't do X unless your supervisor says you can go do X. And no one would do anything until they were told to do it. So that's the old way. In the new workplace, and as well as in the classroom, what if you empowered and trusted your students? There's a lot of research out there that shows that what we call the knowledge worker, which is today's worker, is more of the knowledge worker versus sorry, I'm forgetting essentially in today's economy, a lot of us are knowledge workers. And if you think about students as being knowledge workers, there's a lot of research out there from Harvard and MIT and lots of smart people that say that knowledge workers, or maybe even students in this case, are motivated by a different set of things. And it's not money. They're motivated by being empowered, by getting to shape their universe, to really enable. They want to be enabled and empowered. And that, of course, requires building a trusted environment as well. So you think about that for a software team who's building software. One application of this would be what we call a product owner would tell them what the vision is for the product. This is the product I want to create in terms of why we're doing it and what the vision is for what it needs to do. These are some of the features it needs to have. But the team is empowered to determine how we build it. So I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but it's like the product owner, or in this case, the teacher is playing the role of a product owner, and you are telling your classroom what your vision is for what they need to learn or what they need to go do, but the students are empowered to figure out how to do it. Kind of a quick summary of an example of that. One other quick thing to mention here is that Agile is a set of frameworks. It's not just values and principles, but it is a set of frameworks. And so if you're building software, these are just examples of some of the Agile methodologies that you'll see out there for building software. You can certainly apply these to how you manage projects in a classroom as well. Kanban is one example we talked about last week. Scrum's a little more rigorous form of that, where you have defined time boxes or sprints that might be 1 or 2 or 3 weeks long. So we can dig into that more if we have time, but just wanted to say that there are some methodologies that really prescribe a process around how you can get the work done. This is one of my last slides on what Agile is, which is this idea of kind of the old way of doing things was actually, this is not the right, it's a different slide. I haven't even seen this one before, sorry. But then if this idea of you want to make progress iteratively and incrementally. So you don't want to just spend 6 months building a plan and not actually delivering any value until month 7. So if you spend 6 months planning, you're not testing or learning until month 7 when you start to implement. And so that's kind of the old way of doing things. And in the Agile way, we're saying as early as week 1 or month 1, you're both planning and delivering value. You're learning and testing. So you're incrementally providing value to your students, or if the students to you as a teacher, but you're always delivering value every single sprint or every single week, and it's usable value that you can test and learn from versus spending 6 months just planning. So I don't know if that makes sense. And it's hard. I'm kind of winging it tonight on how do we apply these in the classroom. So be patient with me. This is kind of my last slide on just Scrum specifically. We talked a bit about Kanban last week, and this is a framework for Scrum. So if you were going to manage projects in the classroom, this is on one slide, all of the different things that are involved in doing Agile project management in a Scrum way. I think I'm throwing way too much information at you way too fast, so please let me know if I need to stop. But if you think about Scrum as having 3 roles, you, the teacher, would be playing that role of the product owner. And the product that you're building is your classroom, or whatever your curriculum is that you want your students to implement. And then you might have a backlog, which could be your curriculum for that week, or whatever learning topics you want to prioritize for a certain week. Or month or quarter. And then the team here is building or implementing your curriculum, or learning the topics you've given them to learn. Or in this case, if it were an assignment like a project, they would create their own backlog for the project that you're asking them to implement. And then they potentially could have a time box on. So every week or every 2 weeks, we're going to accomplish a certain number of stories in our backlog, which help us complete our project that you've assigned to us. So and then as far as events go, these stand-ups would be, so if you were grouping your students into teams or groups, each group would determine what time in the day are they going to have a stand-up. So could be something as just a 15-minute or 30-minute meeting that group of students has, maybe a couple times a week, even outside of the classroom, where they talk about what is the work they need to do and who's doing what. and the prioritization of that work. And then maybe at the end of every week, that team, either as a team or a group or as a full class, would have a retrospective and say what worked, what didn't work, what did we learn or not learn, how do we want to do some things differently next week. So these are just a really high level overview of the different events and tools and roles that we can have for managing projects in an agile way. And next week, one of our really amazing agile coaches is going to come back next Thursday evening and talk through specific examples of the two specific examples you gave us, Terrell. Can you remind me what those were?
Well, yeah, so the frame here for my classroom, and I'll own this one, is that if I have a group of AP computer science kids that are building a casino program that has multiple games in it, then that group would, become the agile group, and it would be a large project they would collaborate on through the agile model, from brainstorming from the scrum all the way to to the end product and backlog refinement as they would maybe move on. And the other is how to use agile in a personal project management. For example, I'd say all my Python students need to write a Pythagorean theorem program, and they all have to do an individual program. That's their project. But you could use an agile model there as they kind of flesh out the challenges and work through the process, but they all independently, create a solution. So those are the two that would be helpful for me. We'll see. There may be other ways of doing this that fits other people's classrooms, but yeah, next week.
Yeah, thank you, Terrell. So next week, one of our agile coaches, his name's Fred Wright. He's actually a computer science person by trade, so that his degree and his career is in computer science, but he now spends all day, every day coaching other computer science professionals on programming professionals on how to build products using Agile. And that's all he does all day, every day. But he also teaches his children at home how to do Python programming. And so he's going to come in and share some ideas for you to consider on how to really apply these in the classroom. And one of the last things so everything we're doing right now is really setting you up for next week, because you do need some of these fundamentals around what is Agile, some of the values and principles and methods that we use. You need some kind of foundation there to really understand what he's going to share with you next week. So that's why I'm here. I'm your prep person. And a little bit about one of the things we do at Slalom is train leaders on how to be agile leaders, how to have a leadership style that really enables their teams to adopt Agile and be successful. So if you think about that in the classroom, you are all leaders of your classrooms. And if you're trying to enable your classroom and your students to embrace Agile ways of working, these are some of the things that you as a leader need to bring to the classroom. So this whole idea of not so much directing, but coaching, not really telling, but collaborating. It's not really about, preventing mistakes, but really you want to embrace learning, and it's okay if it didn't work. We want to learn through the thing that didn't work. And then really trying to, this idea of being reactive or being creative and innovative, and really enabling your students to feel safe and comfortable and experimenting and trying new things and learning. And it's okay if they mess up, and creating that safe environment for them. So these are just some of the things as leaders of the classroom. It's about a mindset that you bring. And then these are lastly, the kind of 6 practices you're going to hear Fred talk about next week. We think about all the many things that Agile is. We wanted to just really boil it down to 6 things you can try in the classroom. And these are some of the things he's going to talk about next week with really tangible applications of them. So this idea of visualizing the workflow in managing your project and the Kanban way of doing that. These feedback loops of just getting real-time feedback from your students on what's working, not working, or even from other teachers. And this idea of making policies explicit. So that's the idea of signage and transparency. And then this idea of just really evolving, being experimental and being collaborative as they work together. And this whole idea of creating this safe space in your virtual classroom. So that's a little teaser for what you're going to get next week. And I will leave you with, I'm going to send these out through Terrell and Kathy, but there's some links here to stories of other schools or teachers who have applied Agile in the classroom. So there's a ton of them out there. These were just a few inspiring ones that I found. And then I'll leave you with this quick little video, and then I'll turn it over to the next person. Terrell, do we have a few minutes for a quick video?
We do.
Okay. Because I don't want you to hear everything from me. I want you to hear it from the people who've done it before. So let me pull up the video. And can you hear that?
No audio's coming.
No audio. Okay, let me try one more time.
Ginger, are we seeing your slides now?
Okay, we didn't test the video. Let me try one more time. Okay, can you see the video now?
We see a video.
Okay, here we go.
No audio. Are you on a headset, Ginger?
No.
Bummer. I can't hear anything. Can anyone else hear?
No, I'm not getting any audio.
No.
If I paste the link in the chat, video works on your end?
I can try it.
Sorry, y'all. We tested everything but the video.
Let me try to run it. Anyone hear it? Hold on.
Just see you and no audio from the video.
Okay, let's try it. So, thumbs up if you can hear it. Nope.
Well, what we can do
Nice.
is we can,
Nice
Sorry.
experiment.
There's
We
a
can-
lesson.
yeah, we'll push it out and people will get a chance to watch it.
Yeah, so
Um,
I pasted the link into the chat window there for everyone. It's a wonderful, inspiring story about a school in Phoenix, I believe, Arizona, that has really embraced Agile in the classroom and the difference that it's made for their students and them as teachers. And there are so many stories just like that one out there on the internet. So feel free to Google and search around and just search for Agile in the classroom, because there are just so many really exciting stories about how teachers like you all across the world, even the Netherlands was really where it started about 6 or 7 years ago. A group of schools and educators in the Netherlands created a whole school that does nothing but teach in an Agile way. So it's not a new thing, but it's really exciting, and feel free to experiment and learn and try a few new things. And with that, thank you all for everything you're doing. And we'll be back next week with some real tactical project examples.
Thank you, Ginger. Appreciate it. And Team Slalom and all you're doing for us. And I just might say to any of you, and I'm going to keep it in mind too, that Ginger works out of the Portland office. And not that that matters anymore with everything virtual, but if you have a group of teachers that would like to sit down and maybe hear from them, like you heard from her last week about tips and tricks. And I'm putting words in your mouth, Ginger, but you had indicated that you would be willing to help the larger community or others as well, other than just the Oregon Computer Science Teacher Group as we have here. And mute. There we go.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that. And I just pasted my email into the chat window. So if anyone wants us to come in and do a webinar for a larger group of teachers in your school district, just let me know. We're happy to do that. And
Thank you very much.
Forgot what I was going to say. So yes, yes is the short answer. Happy to do that.
And very much appreciated. And while we're kind of transitioning, Randy, you're on. And give me 30 seconds here, but one thing I just want that I'm inspired here to use a different currency for my kids. I've talked about you going to high tech to have a good job and a lot of money and on a salary wise, but you use the idea of maybe a different currency here, enabling and empowering. So the idea of these high tech skills that we're teaching as computer science teachers gives them more than just the ability to make some bucks, gives them so I'm going to use that when I talk to my kids, that this is an enabling and empowering situation. Also, thank you for the slides, because I know there's 3 or 4 of those slides that are very helpful, very concise, and gives a good picture of how agile, and I'm going to stop saying agile because it's agile, as Slalom now has said. So I'm going to correct my brain on that. But thank you very much. And the whole idea of agile leadership, that slide is very cool, showing the, what could be from what has been. So thank you very much. All right, other tools. I'm going to turn it over to Randy. Go for it, Randy. Well, let me introduce Randy. You may be muted. We can't hear you. While you're fixing that. Yeah, there you go. Randy teaches full-time computer science at Corvallis High School. Think about his situation where this will be his 3rd year. At the end of his 2nd year of actual teaching anything, in particular computer science, we bailed on this COVID-19 thing. So he's reeling a little bit from how life works in this career change, but he has some things that he can offer. He's also running a workshop for us for a middle school curriculum. And he has 1 session left as well. Randy, you're on, buddy.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, and I'm hoping, Ginger, you'll stay for just a minute. So I had no idea that your presentation was going to be about that, because the tool I'm going to talk about is really something that I've used, and I think others here have used with their kids in kind of an agile format. So you're probably familiar with Trello, Ginger? Is it something that you guys use in the industry?
I use it every day, all day, for both my work and my home.
Okay, so even though I'm talking about this, I have not used it a lot lately. I used it a lot when I was working with the Teachers Association in planning the SuperQuests, and it was just invaluable. But you could probably tell these guys more about it than I can. Nonetheless, I will tell them my experience with Trello as a teacher and as a program manager. But really, I'm going to share my screen. If that's okay?
Please.
And please, Ginger, if you want to just pop in, because again, really the tool I'm talking about fits right in with what you just shared.
No, it sounds like a perfect follow-on. Terrell knew what he was doing.
Yeah, apparently, Terrell, you were this was some good planning on your part. Okay, hold on a sec here. That is really not what I want to do. Let me go back. All right, now I'm going to share my screen. If it'll let me. There we go. Okay, can everybody see my deck?
Yes, we're good.
Okay, cool. Hold on a sec. I want to make sure that I can see you all. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Trello. Now, these slides here, I stole from a fellow worker, Pete Steinfeld, who taught me what I know about Agile. And he had this whole deck, and I just took these 2 slides out of his deck. So Trello is really something that you can use to make Agile easier, to track projects in an Agile way. My first experience with it was actually as an after-school facilitator for kids working on video games and websites, and then eventually coaching kids for the Oregon Game Project Challenge. How many of you, raise your hands if you had a team? Yeah, Mr. Barlow, I'm sure is very familiar with it. Matt, yeah, Kim, good. Kathy, yeah. So it was, and maybe a lot of your kids used Trello for tracking their projects. So in the Agile terms, your project is your Trello board. So let me show you a board. So here is a little template that I made, and it's the most simplified way of doing Agile for a project. And it's something that I found works really well with kids. You just have these 3, we call them cards. And to go back, that's just your projects. It's the game, the website, the project you're making. And again, I also want to say is Agile is a team process. So it's probably not something, I've never been able to use it on my own projects. It really works best if you're working with a team. And I can't see the chat, so if anybody has a question, maybe Kathy can read it out. And then your task in completing your project is, let me go back here, is this, well, we call these, God, maybe somebody can help me. This is a card. This is
User story.
story, there we go.
Card works too, but story's another one you'll hear people say.
Yeah, and you group them really, and I think, Ginger, this is kind of the Kanban way of doing it.
Mhm.
Where the simplest thing is you have a to-do, a doing, a done. Sometimes people will add to it, well, they'll have a proposed. So it's not something that has been agreed upon that needs to get done. Sometimes you'll put things that you've decided not to get done. But I usually recommend kids start out with something really simple, like these 3 cards. So this is what we're going to do. When you're done with it, you drag it over, or not done with it. When you've decided to start it, you move it over here. And when you're done, it goes over here. And sometimes it goes back. I'm not going to show you that whole process. I bet you Ginger's going to talk more about that next week or something to that effect. But a couple of things I want to do is just to give you some practice, I'm going to invite you all to this board. So I'm going to paste this in the chat. And if you don't have an account, you can still see it because I've made it public. Why am I not seeing? Oh, there it is. Okay, there's my chat. Put that in the chat. So if you guys click on that, then you should be able to join it. If you've got a Trello account, go ahead and log in. And some other things to talk about here. You can usually, the nice thing about Trello, in addition to just creating a card that says the task, you can add other features to the card, like you can create a checklist for things that need to get done to do this. So here we go. Here's our first lesson. We're going to make a lesson. And what you might do is create a checklist. So you can go over here, create a checklist. Sometimes you can copy them from another checklist. I've already created one. So here we're going to do a lesson plan. So we're going to make what are our learning objectives, what learning tasks. We're going to create some sort of formative assessment, and then I'll make my slides. And there may be other tasks that I want to add. I added myself to this card. So when if you're doing this in an agile way, then the people who are members of the card, usually you want just one person who is the product owner. Anybody who's on the team can edit a card, but when you add someone as a member, you're saying that like they own that card. And so it's their responsibility when this is all done, say the checklist has been, everything's been done in the checklist, then that person's responsibility is to move the card along. So in this case, if it were done, we'd move it over here. So that's owners. You can add comments, and this is your life cycle in moving your card from these three spots. So I invite anyone to go ahead and create a card, something that they think should be done, and maybe add another member to the card. Just play around with it. That's really how I feel you learn. And let's see, what else did I want to cover? You'll want to create a team. So here, I have a board. You guys are all part of this team right now, but you can go into Trello and let's see here. It's been a while since I messed around in Trello.
Oh, Randy, that board looks familiar to me.
Doesn't that? That's
Yep.
all SuperQuest stuff. Oh,
That's
here
how
we
we
go. Team.
managed our grant. Thank you, Randy, for helping us.
So the SuperQuest participants, this is our team. And let's see who's a member here. So none of you are actually a member of the team unless you get invited to be the team. So you can be a member of a board without being a member of the team. But then when you're a member of a team, you're a member of not only this board, but any other boards that the team creates. So let's say you've got, you might have a couple of projects that your class is working on. So you might make a team be your class. That's what I might do. And then a board would be for each project, and you'd move your students to the various boards. And that way, you as the teacher can keep track of everybody's project. So again, I think this is really, the power in this is projects that groups of kids are going to work on. And then I'm going to just finish up this last slide, and then I'm going to open for questions. So let's see. We create our 3 Trello lists. You create the card that defines the goal of the project, which I didn't do yet. Usually that it goes, we usually do that. There is a place, here we go. Well, no, that's change the team. Nope, that's this. Anyways, we'll do that later. This is moving cards, triaging new cards. You can assign members to cards. Again, those are the people who are charged with basically the life cycle of the card. And that's really it. I'm going to open it to questions, but that's kind of all I had for tonight.
Can I comment, Randy?
Yeah.
So thank you for showing this. I want everyone on the call to know how instrumental you were in helping our Oregon CSTA team actually manage our grant for 4 years. We used the Trello board extensively because we had so many moving parts, and we didn't have very many people, but we had a lot of jobs that needed to be done. And we needed accountability on who was doing what, when, if it was done, if it needed help, right, where it was in the process. I will also say, quite honestly, the Trello board is only good as the people who use it, and you got to use it, right? And so that would be me, right? It was a good way for me when we were managing the project to see where everything was, but I'll be the first one to admit to say, oh, Randy, I did that. Can you move the card for me? So I say a personal thank you, but right, tools are only good as if you use them, and you only need them if you need them. So otherwise it's super effective. I have somebody in my ear asking me a question, but I can't hear you. Try again. No? Questions? Does anyone have any questions for Randy? Ginger wants to share her Trello board. Should we let Ginger stay on and share her Trello board?
Go for it.
I'm going to stop sharing.
That's Randy. I can't hear you.
Oh, that's probably me, huh?
Yep. Let's unshare you, Randy, and we'll switch to Ginger.
In case it's helpful, I'll share some of the we use this at work to manage a lot of our projects for the clients we're doing. So in case that's helpful, I can show mine. So I think similar to, can you see?
Yep.
See my screen? So similar to,
Yes.
similar to what Kathy just showed you, each of these boxes is a different project. And you can create groups as well with your projects. So a lot of the work you're seeing here, a lot of the things that I do all day, every day really is proposals. I write a lot of proposals right now. So you'll see a lot of proposals up here in RFPs, but each of these little boxes is a project that a group of people or a team is working on. And then you can actually even create these group subgroups. So like, if you have, in the case of proposals, each of these is a different proposal team. I guess in your classroom, these could be different projects that different groups of students are working on. So you can create these different groups and subgroups. And then I'll show you a couple examples of a Kanban. So these columns you can really customize whatever the flow of work is your column. Your columns are that process or the flow of work from start to finish. So this is another example, very similar to the one Randy showed you around this. Like if you just have an idea, so this was a board that we used for a client, actually the Oregon Higher Education Coordinating Commission, you might know them. We did their IT strategy, and this column on the far left was anyone had an idea, like drop your idea here. This was work that we thought we might need to do, but and then once it gets into the backlog, it ideally is groomed, meaning someone's defined the story, and you can think of stories as requirements in the old world of IT management, as requirements and stories or cards are similar. And then within each card, you can assign people to it. You can create checklists as well. So you could say, like, these are all the things I need to complete. There's a lot of fields within each one, but in this case, we had the backlog of doing, I was gonna suggest this blocked column. You find it really helpful to just visualize where people are stuck. So, you know, this could say, I'm stuck. So things that are broken or stuck, or you just can't move forward unless you need help. So that's one example. I'll go back to my board. Just one other quick example. Speaking of grants, this is really, well, I keep a template here. So if you think about, you know, like doing grants or proposals or projects, one thing I found helpful is this was originally for an equity related work, but it also is now my template. So anytime a new project kicks off, where we have to create a proposal, the backlog stays the same for the most part, and you can copy the board. So this is like your template for projects. If you fill up your backlog with all of those standard things that you'd want to do for any project, and then you can just have your students copy copy the board, and so they don't have to create a new one every time. And then maybe think what would be another that's another proposal. This is one that's a little different. So you can see how the columns are different here. So this is my board that I use with a group of people to manage our proposals that we come in. So if you think about like all the different workflows that you might want to visualize or manage, those, again, your columns are the workflows. So in this case, you know, this is a proposal life cycle. So the intake for the proposal, we need to decide that are we going to do it or not do it. If we decide we're going to do it, then we're going to stand up a team, and then it's in process and it gets done, or maybe it gets stuck or archived. So I wasn't planning to show you any of those, but hopefully it's an example of different ways to use this, and just starting with what Randy was showing you there is the simplest way of, you know, backlog, in progress, and stuck and done. Those 4 columns work for just about anything.
Thank you, Ginger. So Randy, anybody have any questions for Randy and Ginger at this point in time? I mean, again, it's not exhaustive what we're doing here. Is this a tool that you can use? Can you envision a way?
Who has used the Trello for, I know Chris, Kathy, yeah. Oh, Kim, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to use it. So it's easy for them if they have an account to just copy a board. So you could prepare a board.
That's the way to do it. Yeah, give them a template.
Okay, so you're gonna once kids branch off into their different pathways in my class, then you know a board might be a really great way for them to keep track of stuff. I really like this a lot.
And you can get, you can be like, if you're a member, you can get notifications too that you can set up. So like, so that when the kids, like when a card gets done, you can set it to notify you in case you want to know when they get stuff done. So it's pretty helpful for that stuff too.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I want to quote Randy. Yeah, thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Ginger.
Give
too.
him a hand here. Here's a hand. But the one quote about that Randy, you need to frame this, folks, because he really came up with something that really encapsulates what we're all about. He said, "Play around with it. That's how we learn." You know, so. And sometimes we do throw things out there, and I find myself sometimes getting in the way of learning because I want to talk. I feel the need to be important. And I want us to back off of that as Tim. I mean, you don't have to do it. I'm talking to me. I need to back off. This Agile and Trello board thing is the process that will be a feather, be a resume piece. This is a process of learning how to learn, learning how to organize. And sometimes we talk and we want to give our angle and our process to the process. And I'm going to back off and do a little bit more of what Randy does, play around with it. That's how we learn. But anyway, a good structure and a copied Trello board and so forth, that hopefully that's going to be a tool that you might be able to implement. Any last comments, and we're going to move on.
I just had one,
Kim.
and this is along the same lines, and it may not be the best idea, but I had my students seriously play around with it for like 20 minutes because they're going to figure out they can change the backgrounds and the pictures and everything in there. And so they did, and they had all kinds of pictures and fun stuff, and they kept it within reason, but they're going to figure it out anyway. So I just let them go with it, and they had a blast. So they really like bought into the Trello by doing that.
Great. So the frame here is that we're teaching online. We're not walking around and sitting down with a group of students physically. So can you use this Trello board to be more effective when you're not tapping them on the shoulder and say, hey, pay attention, get off of World of Warcraft. So, you know, that's that's why we're here today, tonight, and this summer to try to figure out how to use some of these tools in the frame of teaching online. And then hopefully with that rhythm, you're going to be able to walk into the classroom and use those useful tools. All right, thank you all. I'm going to drop into a little bit of, I'll be brief on mine, and Kathy's going to be up with Slack, and then Chris. And I need a repository. I need a student repository for their assignments that I can find in one single location. And so I'm going to share my screen with you. I use Google Sites. In the case of in Google Sites, I'm not going to get in on how to show you particularly. Let me bring up my board here. So I use Google Sites. Every student has a website URL. I collect through Google Forms their URL. And notice that I don't know if we can see here, but I have their name, I have their emails, I have their Google site, and the listing, the curriculum that they're in, the period goes periods 1, 2, 3, 4. And so I can sit watching the Blazers, and well, not tonight, but I can sit here and go through their Google sites and look at all of their, look at their work. It's a repository. I use Google Sites to do that. You may have a better system, but this is what I use. I'll use one student here. We'll call him Jeff because that happens to be his name. I require them to put their picture in on their front page. And the reason is that I have 40 students I had 40 students per class for several years. And I became more acquainted with the back of their heads than their face many times because I had the students strung out along the outside walls so that I could use collaborative teaching space in the middle, and they would go to their computers on the outside walls. I had a large enough room to do that. So I needed their face. But for example, in this case, their curriculum. Here's Jeff does Java, and he had other curriculums, but in this case, he posts code, then he talks about it. Post code reflects, post code reflects, post activities on a web learning system, LMS, talks about it. And so I use a lot of reflection. I need them to post all their work, and that way I can, at my leisure, pop through, grab their website, look at various things that I need to see, their curriculum, their resume. I have a resume link. I have issues regarding philosophy that I talk about called T-Talks every weekly. I also have them post their papers here. Now you might think Google Classroom or some other form of assignment collection works. I'm just telling you that this works really well for me. I have all the students create a website. I have them put their URL into a Google form, and it stacks up nicely. I can easily sort this by group. These are my game design students in period 1, my Java A students in period 1. I have a little music design, digital music design group, and so forth and so on. So questions, yes.
Yes, I have 2 questions in the chat, T. Smith. I'm going to interrupt you. Tuesday's mic is disabled, so she wants to know, how do you approach internet safety while also having a web page?
Just make sure that they do not turn it make it open to the world. And so in Google Sites, you can control, so each student says the only the way you should control the rights or access to your website is anyone who has a link. So they send me a link and I say, send me the link. If you don't want to show your mom your website, great.
Then don't make it.
I may rat you out and say, hey mom, here it is. But if you keep it limited to anyone who has a link, and then you control where that link goes, it can't be Googled, it can't be searched on the web.
So along that same line, Sherry asked, do you provide a template for them to start with, or do you leave it open for them?
I show them examples. I might pull up Jeff's page and say, here's what I need. I need a curriculum page. I need a paper essay page. I need a T-Talk page. You'll need to have your resume on here. you'll need to have a vocabulary page for the vocabulary of your language, of your particular topic.
So you set parameters, but you don't give them a
do.
template from which to
I
start.
don't give them a template. I say, get creative. You know, again, I don't need to script this. I just need to be able to find it. It needs to function. So I need to have particular pieces so that I can grab this site, and we'll just grab one. Who are these people? We'll just grab this one. All right, I'm going to grade it. There's Brandon, pretty good looking guy. And so I want to go to his curriculum. So I grab his curriculum and I scroll down. And I'm not sure where what's. Oh, try 3/20, 1920. He was a senior and bailed, so that's why there's nothing here. But anyway, that's how I do it. I grab it, I pop it up, I grade it, and just roll down the line. So you may have other ways. I just happen to like this system. And any other questions, and then we'll move on.
Questions? All right, thanks, T.
Okay, Kathy, Slack.
That's me. So hello, everyone. So you're probably thinking, what the heck is she going to talk to us about? So I'm full disclosure here. I'm not a teacher. I am a woman in tech. I have a background in engineering and a master's degree in global tech development. I am the mother of 5. So by the way, if your kids are making websites that their mothers can't see, they shouldn't be making them to begin with. At one point, I had one kid in every grade band. So K-5, middle school, high school, college. I do a lot of volunteer work in the classroom. I love hanging around teachers. I think you're just the best group in the world ever. I'm in awe of what you all do every day, especially in today's world, both in the classroom and out of the classroom. And I've been with Oregon CSTA for 10 years now. I'm doing pro bono work. This is my giving back moment. I was influenced so much in high school by my math teacher who said, yeah, you're great at math. You need to go do more math. And it doesn't matter if you're a girl, you just need to go get it done. So I always say to myself, and she told me way back then, and she's no longer here, that when I get a chance to give back to teachers and education and support. And so here I am. So what do I have to add to how you can manage classrooms? So I wrote some things down that Ginger said. Let's remember these words, because it's an interesting way, the way she went into Randy's went into T's talking, that there's some sort of unifying message here, right? So Ginger said collaboration, trust and power, self-organizing, safe, comfortable environment. Interesting, because you'll see those words pop up in my presentation. And oh, by the way, I am old enough to remember software development life cycles way before Agile was developed. So I kind of giggled when I said, yeah, I know the Beatles. I am not as old as T, but I'm sort of kind of close. So I'm going to share my screen. Somebody give me a thumbs up when you can see my PowerPoint. Somebody, thumbs up. Gee, Kim's giving me a thumbs up. Awesome. So let's do this. So let's, here we are today. My anxieties have anxieties. We've talked to so many teachers. I've talked to right through our SuperQuest virtual and parents, and everybody has anxiety. If you don't have anxiety, then what planet are you on? Because everyone has it. And Michelle Obama admitted to it, and we're all just gonna say what it is and what is it's gonna look like. You've all been asked to pivot, right or left. We're not going straight anymore. We're taking a turn. And this anxiety hand up, right? Who has anxiety? Raise your hand. But at the same time, we're hoping that our SuperQuest classes will stop some of that anxiety, right? So that hand could be either, yes, I have it, and or we're gonna stop the anxiety. We're gonna find tools that are gonna help us move along, because we gotta do this, we don't have a choice. So what is Slack? So I do work, some of you do know that I work for NCWIT, the National Center for Women in Information Technology. We're a NSF funded organization, and I'm a consultant there on women and tech issues. But besides that, we are a distributed team. We have affiliates all over the world, and we have consultants all over the world, and we communicate with Slack. Now, Chris Bartlett's going to follow me, and he's going to talk about Discord. I don't know Discord. I was looking through his presentation when we did the tech check, and I'm like, hey, that really looks a lot like Slack. So he says, yeah, it's kind of Slack for kids. So Discord, from what I know, is used in a gaming platform where people can talk to each other while they play, and it may be a little more kid-friendly. Maybe Slack is the grown-up version of Discord. I thought we'd give you the opportunity here. So we talked about Agile as a principle. I was going to say methodology, but Ginger has corrected me. We looked at Trello as a way to project manage a learning management system, project manage your project. But how about the communication that goes on, right? I mentioned earlier, I go into the classroom a lot as a volunteer or to watch you guys work, and I see a lot of when we were in person, a lot of leaning next to each other to whisper in someone's ear, hey, what does this look like? Hey, can you help me with this code? Hey, look at my code over here. Look, this is cool. Even at the 3rd, 4th grade level, when my kiddo goes to school, he misses that interaction of, hey, come work with me on this project and count our blocks together and do our math, or right, where's that engagement now when you all are learning virtually? We've got Zoom people up now, and I can't talk to Kim and say, hey, how's it going? Oh, by the way, do you have a really good idea for me to work on with my community and my teaching in my whatever? We can't really have that. So Slack is a form of communication, and I need people to put in the chat, by the way, while I'm talking, what is your engagement with Slack, 1 to 5? If anybody has used it, please interrupt me and tell me. It's a collaboration hub. It's really a way of people to be able to engage with each other. And what a great way for your students to keep talking to each other while they work on their Kanban boards or their Trello boards or their projects that you give them. How do they continue to engage and relate to each other? You can engage your students. As educators, you can be aligned to what everyone's doing all at the same time. And that together creates a connected digital classroom. So, why should I use Slack in my classroom? Well, it does build that human connection that we're gonna miss when we're not in person. The students can support each other. You as the learning manager can watch all that happen. You know, you guys can see that in the classroom, that magic happens when there's human interaction. When you don't have that, you don't know if that's happening still. It's easy to put out assignments and alerts about what's happening and what they need to pay attention to. Let me move this here. It does work on multiple devices. So oftentimes at work, I'm on my phone working on Slack, I'm on my laptop, I'm on my tablet. It is cross device. So someone doesn't have to say, well, I don't have a Chromebook, I don't have a computer at home. If you have a cell phone, you can use Slack and still be in communication with your teams. But here's what I love. It dramatically reduces the email volume. So I don't know how you all communicate with your students, but I'm up to 30,135 emails. And sorry, 30,130 person emails, you're not going to get an answer from me. I'm sorry. So Slack takes that email volume away and puts your email questions and questions about projects and answers to projects all in categories. And I'm going to show you how that works in just a second. It's really a great way of organizing your thought, your process, your projects all in one place so you can see everything that's happening at one time. In this cartoon here at the bottom, collaborative work, right? You get support from your teacher and your fellow students. You create teamwork. You have better communication. You build trust within your team. You have more motivation to get the project done. You get inspired by other people by continuing that human interaction. And that's the target for success. Isn't that what we're all looking for when we're creating these teams in our classrooms and our students? And my computer just stopped. Okay, so features. What does Slack offer you? It offers you a couple of things. So you can have different workspaces, and I'll show you that in a second. So for me, I have my NCWIT workspace. I have an Oregon CSTA Slack. I have a contractors freelance Slack, different workspaces for different groups that I work with. Within those workspaces, I have different channels divided up by subject matter, if you will. And I'll show you an example. Direct messaging you can do in Slack. You can search. So if I need to search for Python code, everything that was talked about Python will come up in my search file. You can also upload files, attach documents, and most importantly, there's tool integration here. So you could take Slack and integrate it directly with Zoom, with Canvas, hello, which I think everyone's using now, G Suite, Office 365, Blackboard. It's all a seamless integration. I don't know if Discord can do that. I'm going to ask Bartlow when he presents here in just a second.
Kathy, can I ask you a quick question?
Please.
So when you decide to use Slack with your team or your, any group,
Yep.
do you all talk ahead of time and agree that you will use it for a certain kind of communication? Because at one point I was using Slack and
Yep.
using email, and it's like, well, why are we going back and forth? Just pick one and go with it. I don't want to ever email you again.
Raji, a great question. Yes, so the first week or two when NCWIT told us no more email, we got to do everything on Slack, people were like, oh, well, I've got to learn another tool, right? Where our organization is famous for, oh, next shiny thing, let's try the next new thing. We've got to be able to do it better than we do it now. And so everyone's kind of rolling their eyes, right? So 2 weeks later, nobody's on email anymore. Nobody. Everybody's on Slack. So I have my cell phone. I get notifications. It beeps at me to say, oh, your Slack, something came in on Slack. Everyone in our organization exclusively uses Slack. Now, sometimes we have to communicate with the outside world on email, and we still use that. But if we're doing an internal project and a team meeting, we're always putting our stuff in Slack. So Raji, good question. So let me show you a little bit about how this works. So on the left, you'll see workspaces. So I've just picked some examples. Say you're T. Smith. I'm going to use T. Smith as an example. Okay, so he teaches computer science. Maybe this year he's going to have to teach a math class. And perhaps, well, I know for sure he's the track coach, and he's still going to have to run track. So if he uses Slack, he can use 3 separate workspaces to divide his workload up so he doesn't have a million emails coming in and having to sort through and who does he have to answer next. Within those channels, he's going to have, within those workspaces, he's going to have separate channels. So for example, in his computer science workspace, he might have channels that say hashtag Python, Java, C#, web development. And the people, and I know because I've been in this class, the students that are working on Python will all be invited to the Python channel, and they're going to talk about their Python project. And T. Smith is going to post the Python assignment, and he's going to say, okay, people, this is your Python assignment. Put any questions you have for me here. So he's going to monitor as a learning manager. He's going to monitor the Python conversations, and Joe, Billy, and Joanne are going to be in the in the Python channel, and they're going to talk to each other. Hey, we're going to work on this, and let's do a group project on that, and here's what it looks like. And they're going to collaborate in the Python channel. Same with Java kids, same with C# kids. Then T's going to go teach Algebra 1 and Geometry, and he's going to go to that workspace, and he's going to have Algebra 1 and Geometry as separate channels where he's going to have the Algebra 1 kids all post questions here. Same for his track club, right? He might have varsity JV, he might have boys hurdles, girls long jump. He's going to have coaches assigned to these channels. They're going to ask when they can get their uniforms, when can we run hurdles, is it safe to show up at practice? He's going to monitor that all in chat, in his channels, and he's going to be able to see someone asked me a question in Python and somebody asked me a question in geometry. But he's not going to have to go through all his email because it's going to be assigned and divided up in an organized fashion so that he can manage what everybody's doing at one time. Does that make sense?
Kathy, you're muted.
How much of that did you not hear?
45 seconds.
The last 15
Okay.
minutes, we
Hey!
didn't get.
So use cases, right? It's remarkably simple and easy to alert everybody at the same time. We're practicing today at 4 o'clock. Make sure you're there with the uniform on and ready to go. We are going to have a test tomorrow. There's a quiz, be ready. Remarkably simple. What I think is most useful in the education sector for Slack is how a lot of educators, CS educators, you're teaching different curriculum all at the same time. And how hard is that in a classroom, but maybe a little bit easier when you go virtually? Because now with Slack and with different channels, same with Discord, you can divide up your kids, right? You're going to have Java, you're going to have C#, you're going to have Python, each different areas. They're going to be able to collaborate with each other, and you're going to be able to be the learning manager while they parallel learn, parallel teach, and you're going to make them connect with each other. So the collaboration here in keeping the students connected in a world now where we're all not socially connected, hugely important. Here's something I found today when I was preparing the presentation is that they've written Python script already that adds Canvas groups directly to your private Slack channels. So if you want to integrate with Canvas, Slack has made that super easy for you to do. They've already done it for you. All right. So who else uses Slack? So yes, higher ed, Arizona State, NYU, USC, Berkeley, Yale. Oh, Oregon State in our own backyard, right on. So if you go to the Oregon State College of Engineering, there are links here. I'll post this online as well. They've set up a whole guide to how they manage this at Oregon State. Good information here on if you're interested in using it in your classroom, communication etiquette, how do you manage your Slack messages. They've got really good points and tips here. But the point here also is you get your students to use it. This is real world application, people, right? Oracle, Symantec, HPE, Starbucks, the Washington Post, they all use Slack to communicate. So here you are creating a worldly environment, a chance for your students to learn, to make mistakes, to play with it, to experiment, right? Like we were talking about earlier. Collaborative, safe, comfortable environment, trusting each other, empowering them to do more, and self-organizing. Sound familiar? I think I heard that at the beginning of the hour. Resources here, they are FERPA compliance. There's a lot of talk now about, oh, we're online, FERPA. Oh, mine isn't, right? Whatever I've used before, it's not. Slack's already done that for you. There's a whole FERPA compliance part of their website. You can go check that out. Question is, how much does it cost? Can I use it for free? Did a little investigating. So Slack for Education comes at an 85% discounted price. However, it is free up to 8,462 users. So unless my math is off, I don't think anybody sees 8,462 users in 1 year. If you are under that limit, which is a kind of a funny number, but if you're under that limit, that it's free to you and you get up to 10,000 messages that you can search on for free. Wouldn't hurt to check it out and get started. Wrapping up here, Slack, you learn where you are. These days, it's going to be wherever. If I'm at the beach or if I'm at my house, you're going to learn. Here's a way for everyone to stay connected. Your students need to stay connected to each other. You've got a lot of people doing Python, some doing Java. Here's a nice Venn diagram where the educator can be connected to all these circles as they all overlap, but they all can do it at the same time. It's going to streamline your life as a learning manager. But I want to leave you with this thought. Your introvert students, and I'm going to talk specifically about those women that are in your CS classes because I see it every day. The two girls that sit in the corner, they work on their whatever program, graphical program most likely, and they don't want to engage. And so it's hard. They're, whatever it is, they're not confident. The boys don't let them get a word in. Here's a way for them to engage more, a little easier when you're typing. Sometimes people don't want to talk, but they sure do have a lot to say. Here's a safe environment for them to contribute to the team without having to stand up or raise their hand or get looked at by a boy who's staring at them. And, I know I was one of those girls, I can say. What a great way to be able to give them that safe environment to be able to contribute to the team and be heard. So I'm going to leave it there. Any questions for me? Thanks for listening.
I think Sherry had a question, which is why is this better than creating discussion boards in Canvas?
That's a good question. I do not know Canvas well. My kids use it. It could be the same thing. Again, I can't answer the Canvas question. Can someone help me with the Canvas question on Sherry's thought?
When I get on mine, I can kind of hit up on some
Right.
of those comparisons.
So again, another tool in your resource box, if you have another tool that does the same thing in keeping communication between your students going, as in Discord, as in Kansas, great. T wanted to make sure that I said something about Slack, what we use in industry. And if it helps you, great. If it's another resources in your toolbox, there's another resource in your toolbox.
Well, thanks for adding that tool to our box. In the case of, we're going to roll right into Chris, but, we can hold questions till the end. You can blurt them now while I'm doing an introduction for Chris Barlow. But again, it's a tool. It works well. Again, you might decide that Canvas, your robust use of Canvas is the way to go, and you won't need to use Slack. No problem at all. Others who, maybe use Canvas, uses Canvas in a kind of surface manner and prefers to use Slack, check all that out, whatever works for you. Chris Bartlow has been a longtime computer science teacher at Wilson High School and has been not only the go-to CS person in Portland Public, but throughout the state of Oregon and Washington as well. So he also works with code.org and other organizations. We're going to not necessarily give him last word today, but he has, we'll try to wrap by 9 and give some time for other sharing toward the end. But Chris Bartlow, thanks for coming and sharing your curriculum and your ideas of how to do this work.
Cool. No worries. So I'm going to throw up my slides here. Hopefully everybody can hear me and see me pretty well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, oh wait, actually, hold on a second. Let me restop this because I actually made some edits to my slide. Okay. Let me reshare because I have a fresher version that has my name on it. Look at that. Now you know who I am in case you can't handle listening to T anymore. Anyways, for those of you who don't know me, I teach at Wilson High School. We have kind of a unique thing because we have a 4-year program. And so we get this kind of cool thing where we get to work with students for multiple years and build a lot of skills over a course of time. And so this whole little talk came out of some projects that kids did that taught us some stuff that then we like incorporated to our classroom. So kids will often bring your best stuff to you. And then it's kind of how do you figure out how to use the cool thing that they came up with to help teach a little bit better. So we had kind of 2 big challenges that really came up during the COVID time. So the first, and Kathy really touched on this, is recreating the discussions that happen in a classroom. And the second is picking activities that keep students happy, healthy, and learning. Because I think that's, that happy, healthy part was a big focus of my spring in COVID, because we're in a situation where students are experiencing kind of a traumatic world change, right? And so you really want to be thinking about the mental health of the kids. And so that gave us some things that sort of to frame this question about like, what are some decisions that we can make? So this kind of led to our communication conundrum, which is, this discussion. So for my classroom, this discussion with between me and students while they're learning is the core thing. I don't do direct instruction. I used flipped classroom stuff, and most of the time in class is them tackling something and working it out and talking to themselves about it. And so, if they're not sitting there, how do you make that happen? And then the other part about that is that I like the activity to be lightly supervised. Those discussions is that kids have different discussions when you're there versus when they're talking amongst themselves. And, kind of the art of doing the project-based classroom is to sort of, get yourself just in earshot to hear what they're talking about without interrupting what they're talking about. So how can we get that sort of thing where I can see what students are talking about, but not interfere with it? The other thing is that we needed something that could accommodate both synchronous and asynchronous options. And that was something that, only about 25% of my kids were actually available during the time that was allotted to us to learn, from parent responsibilities to internet access to being awake. We basically just didn't use that time for live. Asynchronous was really important. And so coming up with tools that let you do that is really important. And so then we were also like, some practical student need stuff. Students have questions. They're okay asking a peer, but not the teacher, keeping late hours. And we don't have to have one more thing to learn. So these are all like the things that are in my head when I'm thinking about how to address students. I think that's probably pretty common with everybody. So Kathy really did a good job of explaining the kind of tool that Slack and Discord are, right? So they're these ways to organize conversations that are sort of text-based. that lets you solve all these problems, right? You can have private messages. It can be synchronous and asynchronous. You can have a discussion that's saved and searchable so that you can go back and view it again. You can invite only the people that you want to invite, right? It's public for your classroom, but not public to the world, right? So all these things that Kathy talked about, you get with Discord. So I call it a multimodal communication tool, because Discord, its kind of origin, and this is how I found out about it, is I play a lot of games. And back in the day, most games didn't have voice chat. And so Discord was a tool to let you have voice chat in games that didn't have voice chat. And it was just like a little app you ran on the side. And it actually, before it was what it is now, you would actually have to have a friend that configured it and set up a little server for you to host it on your computer. Now it's all cloud hosted. It's pretty cool. So that was the original thing. And actually for years, a lot of kids, like my computer science kids, what they would do is they'd go home, they'd sit on their computers, they'd start up a Discord channel, like the old conference call, and chat with each other while they were coding at home. And they'd tell jokes, and it was just this fun little study group that they did at home. But then Discord kind of grew up, and they started adding all of this text-based stuff, and they became really the main place that students are going to participate in these very specialized communities. So Discord operates on sort of these communities. Channels is kind of the word that they tend to use. They're kind of like the channel workspace thing that Kathy was talking about. So for instance, a lot of my students, they have channels where they follow specific games, or maybe for their what kind of how they identify, there might be a channel that they follow, or for TV or movies or art that they like. And so they'll have a subscription to all these different things. And it's really funny because some kids will be super private, they'll have their Discord up, and it has a little icon for all the different groups they're in. They won't want you to see it because they're in something that I don't know is important to them, or maybe inappropriate or whatever. But for years, kids have been going for these reasons. So they join it, they get homework help, all these sort of things. And so, okay, cool. We have this awesome thing. We can do text-based messaging. We can do some voice chat. We can do actually live streaming. So if you wanted to do one-to-many streaming where you share your screen, kind of like I'm doing right now, everybody could hear my voice, see my screen, and then they could type questions and interact with me sort of in real time. So it's actually a way you can actually host a synchronous class, like if you don't have a Zoom membership or Google Meet, you don't care about the kids having video, right? So that's all really thing. But the biggest, coolest thing I think about Discord and how we actually got it into my classroom is that there's all these bots that you can run on it. And so my students got interested. They're already interested because they participated in it. But a lot of the sort of fanciest communities have these automated bots that help you interact with them. Hello? So anyways, and so what my students wanted to do is they wanted to make a bot for Discord, which is awesome for computer science. And it turned out to be not too hard. There's a pretty easy to use API. There's a lot of great tutorials about how to make a real simple a chatbot. And the chatbot basically responds to all the commands in Discord are sort of led with an exclamation point. So you put down exclamation point Apple, and then it would respond. So now all of a sudden you have this kind of cool coding thing where you can set up a little, server that you sort of ping. You have to host code, and but it's not too complicated because the tutorials are really good. So then students we sort of adopted Discord as a thing to do, and a bunch of kids made really cool little bots that did just silly little useful things like, oh, I'm going to ask what period it is, and it would spit back like how many minutes are left in the period, you know. Or one group of kids, they ran like a gaming club, and they used it to broadcast and schedule all their matches. And so it would automatically, you'd send a motion like, who wants to play tonight? And then everybody could respond, and it would automatically like collect it and like make the teams and send out a little message like, hey, here's your team for tonight. And these were all doable by kids like in my sort of second year computer science class, like very accessible. And that really was the thing that kind of put Discord over the top for me, is because it had this customization feature that tied into my curriculum. And so that's one of the things that we're going to do a little unit on this year. So, so I'm going to switch over to demo time here, and I'm going to show you actually I'm not going to show you what my students are. I'm actually going to show you, if you can kind of see this Discord setup. This is what Discord looks like. It looks a lot like that Slack thing that you saw. And really what I want to kind of highlight is that this whole thing that I have set up right now is actually a default installation that they made for educators. So Discord really wanted to help out educators, and they made basically a one-click setup where you can get like a class populated with the kinds of things that you would want. And really all you got to do is go in and rename them to do what you want. So you can see here, this up here on the upper left-hand side is kind of the servers that they call them. So this is the Wilson Computer Science server. And then I would invite my students. So you do a little bit of a collection to get everybody to make a thing. It's really easy to have multiple usernames on this. A lot of kids have like different personas. So you tell everybody to make a persona that matched up with their actual name. We'll get on more on that on like best practice stuff. Cause you don't want to have like Taco Wagon 84 be a, trying to figure out which kid that is a little tedious, we'll say. So anyways, what do we have here? I have these pinned little bars, which let me make these channels. So the hashtags are just different channels that have little labels on them that encourage people to do those kind of things here. So for instance, office hour time is probably going to have one post that I'm going to put in that's, hey, for the week of such and such, these is when I'm going to be available, right? Class schedule, probably going to have one post that just has that. Lecture notes are probably going to be a link to a Google document that comes up if I lecture. Here's a little section I have that's a channel to just say, hey, here's questions on the homework. So the kids can type their answers. And the cool thing is they can type it, it's directed at me, and then my response is then saved to everybody. So what I'm going to encourage them to do is say something like this: packet, 05, problem 01, here's my question. So then it'll be really easy for anybody else to search to see what's packet 05, problem 01. Now I have this cool searchable database of commonly asked questions that they asked me, they got an answer. Kind of getting to what Kathy said is you get help passively without having to put yourself out there. So that's really good. Then you can have channels for each of your individual classes for specific notices and things like that. And then here, these things, if we click here, these ones that have microphones by it are I'm going to have to disable myself. This one is basically a live stream. It captures my audio just like we're doing on Zoom right now. So these would be places that like you would go for live instruction to hear it. And then you have a little section here for study groups and maybe your TAs, right? Or maybe other teachers you're working with. And all of this works because you can set permissions and label people of having different roles in the class. So when you invite somebody, and I click on myself here, and I currently have no role, I can click here, and you know what? I'm the professor. So now I have a label that says I'm the professor, and I can access all the stuff that a professor is allowed to access. You know what? I'm also going to be in Music 202 because I want to be in music class right now. and that's that. And so now I can go in, once you tag all the kids with that, you can make peer mentors. Oh, peer mentors have the ability to post in the, maybe they can make a new study group channel. So they're allowed to do that. So all of a sudden you can have the kids, as we talked with the Agile with Ginger earlier on, about self-organizing the kind of help that they need and the ways that they organize it, because that's what's really valuable for them. So there can totally be the late night crew that goes in and does their work at 2 a.m. So they got study group super night owls. And then, hey, there's a first timer study group. And then, hey, one of my TAs can be a mentor for that one. And they're watching that channel. So I don't have to watch every channel. Right. So that's another really big, oh wait, I want to hang up. Okay. I'm going to hang up my live lecture there, so I am not double recording. But so anyways, that's what's really going to be interesting about this scenario. And I will switch over to sort of my best things. Before I do that, does anybody have any just quick questions about the format or how channels work? Kathy?
Of course, I have a question.
Please.
So we've had some discussions in the chat about how similar it is to what I presented and how this is going to work for good communication tools. But the main question we want to know is, what does this cost? Is this free?
This is all free. This is all free. Okay. So that's one of the other reasons that Discord's great, is that it's super free. And that's one of the reasons that all the kids have it. And so there are certain things that you can get by paying, but you don't need.
Right.
So for instance, if you need to have a lecture to more than 50 kids, then there's some cost associated with it. But this little one-click install, you can invite as many people as you want, and you're not going to hit any of the secret backdoor limits. But
so we're on recording. I'm going to ask you this question. You're Wilson High School PPS, and I'm just letting you know that we're being recorded. Is this a FERPA already approved type of thing, or is this just Chris Bartlow's class using it?
Chris Barlow uses lots of things that are not officially approved by PPSIT.
I've heard that before somewhere.
Yeah. How many times I got one of the upper guys of IT fired this year, so I felt really good about that. He wrote stonewalling me. No, I don't think I actually got him fired, but he sent me a bunch of inappropriate emails, which may have led to him getting himself fired. But that's that. So, anyways, so I think that the thing about Discord, and again, I'll kind of say this again, is that it's really what the students actually use. So you don't it's ultimately there's basically 3 to really consider. There's Teams, Microsoft Teams, mm-hmm. which has had a huge surge, and they've made a lot of really big improvements on it during COVID, and that's run by Microsoft. Right. And that has we'll say a limitation is that it likes Windows stuff. But it will work on other stuff, but it really likes Windows stuff better. Then there's Slack, which I would say is really the industry standard that Microsoft's trying to catch up to. And then there's Discord, which really kind of got this consumer casual space kind of locked down. And it has, so it doesn't have as much rigorous lockdown as Slack does. And Slack has a lot of the customization as well, but it's meant to be compliance and a lot of that business stuff that that's too much for us. So and there's a million bots and plugins. There's these cool little role-playing games you get. There's actually one of the university guys I talked to that started off doing Discord a while ago. He actually they had their own cryptocurrency that they started up at their school that you earned by turning in homework and mentoring peers. And then they had this weird little currency system where they could exchange it for all sorts of weird stuff. And it totally took a life of their own. And so now it's whatever this red coin is at that university, people will totally trade it for oh, you got a couch? I'll give you some, red coin for it or whatever. And so it's kind of cool how there's all this neat stuff that can kind of evolve on this because it's such a customizable platform. So I'm not going to go into how to set it up because I just literally it takes 10 seconds. You go to this link And it will take you to a little Discord on the Discord blog, like Discord one-on-one. It'll give you sort of a little overview of what Discord is, and they'll give you a just click here and you'll breeze through the Discord, sign up, and automatically get your own pre-organized space. And it'll give you exactly what we had over on the demo screen that I showed you. It's like one click, you make an account. I made a new account just for this one. Really simple. Yeah, not too bad. So a couple of best practice stuff. So here, I'm gonna try to pop up the chat. Yes, absolutely runs on mobile. The kids all have this on their phones all the time. Again, like this is how, like even before like we even started talking about it, like particularly my students of color, my trans kids, my LGBTQ kids, like all of those kids were already very involved in Discord because it helps you find communities of similar people. And that's really what it's about. So there's all these other channels that you can add so you can, go find stuff. I, found a channel of people that were like doing C++ stuff when I was trying to solve some problem. And I like posted to it and it was kind of like Stack Overflow, like, oh, popped up on somebody's screen. They shot me back an answer. Okay, I troubleshot that weird thing with IO stream that I was trying to figure out. It was really very pleasant. So the best practices, I think, is that you're going to have some kids that already know Discord and are like running servers for their like, favorite anime or, their soccer team or whatever it is. And so you can make them what they call moderators. So you can give them one of those tags that gives them more control, and they can help you a lot with like how to organize this stuff, or help set up the filters in case you're worried about people saying bad words or, things like that. And so they'll feel really empowered because a lot of those kids maybe aren't the best at school, but are the best at Discord. And so it's a great way to give them agency over the classroom and make them feel important. So that's been pretty fun. Take the time to set up norms, just like you would do about any classroom space. Like we spend a lot of time talking about our discussion strategies in class, but I don't see a lot of schools talking about what like conversations in online spaces should look like. There's a little bit of that. I can say whatever I want and the rules don't apply because you're not going to slap me on the wrist or whatever. So that, to me, that starts with usernames and picking appropriate usernames that clearly identify who you are. And then it's just another thing to do is source this stuff out. Like don't lecture like this. Figure out who knows Discord and then put them in a little, breakout room with some people that know it well and some kids that don't know it. They can like friend each other, practice sending stuff, and then that's something they can do the rest of their day while they're sitting on one of these boring conference calls. They can, practice their Discord skills. And that's another reason that's really nice is that it's, low. It's light touch. I put light touch here, which basically says the goal is a safe place for students to connect. So you don't want to have rules that like, I'm going to stare at everything you said and judge you, right? Like that's not what you really want to do. You want to say like, this is a space for you guys to create the community that you want. And let's show it the same respect that we show all of our communities. And when you do that and you assign students to be mods, you tend to get really good results. And so I think that's worth things. And then just have clear hours for when you're going to be on it, because the kids keep really strange hours now. Maybe not strange hours. They keep the hours they would keep in college, but just a few years early. You want to say, you know what, I'm not going to be responding to you at 3 a.m. Like, let's be clear. I'm going to respond to you like, oh, you know what? I'm going to do a little stint in the morning and a little stint after dinner. Okay, that's where you're contacting me. And that'll keep your sanity. I have all of my like alerts and ringers and buzzing on my phone off because it's like, I get so much stuff. It like freaks me out. So I have it all turned off and then I like pick up my phone, every 15 minutes, see if I got anything. There you go. So that's just an important rule. The other thing that I think is really great about Discord is it's a great way, and this will work with Slack too, is that it's a great place for volunteers because volunteers can all of a sudden be a active part of your classroom asynchronously, right? So that you can get somebody that's a great programmer to be helping out on a study group, or you know, on the ask a professional a thing. And so you can do curly experiences, you can do coding help, you can do, hey, I need somebody to look at my design document or help me with my Trello board. And like that message pops up, and then that person can respond when they have time. And so you can organize actually quite a few volunteers that way, I think is a really useful way to do it. The professionals will find it very similar to Slack, because most of them are using Slack. And so it's not a big jump for them. It doesn't feel weird to do it. They might ask you, why aren't you using Slack? And you'd be like, well, we need it free. And so there you go. If you will pay for us to use Slack, maybe we'll consider. So I really think that this is, that's something I haven't done yet. But I was actually talking to Jason Galbraith, and Jason has been using Discord, and Doug Mandel has also been using Discord to bring in people from outside the classroom. The other one is, just use this one-step education setup and then rename everything. It's like so much easier than trying to like start with a blank one and customize it all yourself, especially when you're sort of a rookie. And then I guess I didn't put it on here, but another good one is before you start doing this with your students, set up Discord and join a server yourself of an interest that you're sort of interested in, just to see how it all works, you know.
Hey,
so you
Chris,
can post a question. Yep.
we have a question in the chat. What's the worst human behavior you've seen on Discord, and how did you handle it? Give us the worst case scenario.
Oh, the worst case scenario. Well, there's this really great meme they made of me. No. So I, in my classroom space, I haven't had one problem with Discord. Okay. The worst scenario I know about on Discord that happened at our school, it actually involved one of my computer science class kids, but he did it like on a private server, is that he basically pretended to be somebody else. So he pretended to be a girl's friend online. So he had a really similar username. Like he figured out their username, he started chatting her up, and then got them to say some stuff, which then he spread it all around. Okay. So classic, like high school cyberbullying kind of things. That was probably the worst one. Because that kid got like almost kicked out of school, or he got kicked out of school for a while, just because he like really caused some havoc with a pattern of that behavior. I don't think that that's Discord specific, but that is one danger to platforms where kids can make their own usernames. So that's why I kind of go back to usernames and, you know, recognize your identity, and basically just like safe internet stuff in general. You know, figure out ways to know who you're talking to. Don't share personal private information on these kinds of spaces. Save that for, you know, don't send people pictures. Like, come on. You know, but kids, there's like pressure to do that. And if kids are casual about it. So the, let's see, other questions. Did anybody else have any other questions about that?
Kathy shared out your mic. If you want to just talk, lift that up and show us your mic. Your voice very clear and better than the rest of us on there are.
So yeah. So yes, T wanted me to talk about my setup. I you know, try to bring you the soothing evening sounds of the 70s. Be listening to a little Daft Punk later on, I guess.
Kathy posted that, yeah.
Yeah, so actually that kind of gets into some lessons that went well, which is kind of my second part about how to keep kids engaged and things like that. So I've done flipped classroom for quite a number of years, where I record helpful videos, I deliver my content, you know, and I started out with like a basic webcam, and that was it. And then what I noticed was, well, it was hard to hear me, and that made it hard to pay attention, because it was like a wall of text and my voice, which was like a little fuzzy. So then I was like, okay, what's the upgrade that I thought would make the biggest difference? And I thought a microphone would be the biggest one. So I went out and I got this thing. It's a Yeti it's Blue is the company, and it's their Yeti microphone. There you go. Matt's got one. They're like, you can usually track them down for under $100. They work really great. They actually have like a little dial on them, so you can change like the field that they collect sound. So like I have it on this boom mic, and so it doesn't actually collect sound anywhere like over here. It only connects it right here. So like if I start talking over here, my voice dropped out a lot, right? So it's really nice. And then I got the arm and a shock mount. And then I actually, when I built my desk, I actually built my, so my computer doesn't sit on the desk to get rid of any vibration. That was one of the things that I really realized, was that if you get a microphone that sits on your desk and you have like a normal desk like you would at school, you'll get this hum like from the fans of the computer. So you want to sort of isolate those, like put your computer on the floor and your microphone on your desk. But this little shock mount cost, I don't know, $20, and it was totally worth it. I invested in a little bit fancier arm, just because I have like a thick desk and the other arm was having a little trouble gripping. And then I have a ring light up here, which is just like I don't know, it's a foot wide, that I can adjust to get like the light tone that I want. So like you might have noticed me like tinkering with it during the thing as like the sunset. I don't have the ISO control on my camera because I don't have a super fancy web camera, but the picture seems to be like, the general impression of my face seems to be good enough. Like that's, there's actually been some research that shows seeing your face on a recorded video boosts students' engagement. So it's always better to record your own video about a topic instead of doing it to like, you know, shipping them off to Khan Academy or, you know, some other resource if you can. So that's pretty much my setup. And then I have multiple monitors, because multiple monitors helps a lot with this. I actually have a drawing tablet that I can use so I can sketch things out and draw pictures, because we do that a lot on whiteboard tables, so I can recreate that. And then I have, you know, my different screens that I use to kind of like lay out my agenda, so it's really easy for me to like swap back and forth.
So, Chris, a couple of things in the chat. You and I will have a post meeting. If you could just, if everyone's interested in all your equipment,
oh yeah,
where you got it beside the mic, if you could just send me a list, I'm going to put that in the resource file.
Yeah, this is
for everyone to. Yeah.
This thing that's in front, like the little ring thing that's like in front of my mouth, this thing, that's called a pop guard. And those are like $10. There's a bunch of them. So it's a pop guard. If I take it off, so I'll go pop, 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 pop. So that sounds pretty smooth. If I take it off, pop, 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 like you get that crackle. So it basically catches the air. If you got some pantyhose or like a sock, you can make your own. So you get all elite. Let's see, the camera, I just have a Logitech 920 is the thing. There's like a newer version of it. They actually are really expensive now. I got mine for $50, but now they're hard to find because everybody needed a camera and they jacked up the price a lot. And I'll send you a list.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and then I guess let's see, a couple other things. So some other things that really went well with COVID, and just so like, this was cool. This was a way to communicate with kids, and that was pretty effective. But pairing it with more open-ended projects really worked well. And so, because you need to have the kids something to talk about, right? And the kind of like do a worksheet or even just grind out like some of the like skill building problems that I was always doing, like wasn't a good match for COVID because the kids were feeling kind of down when they did that. So I'll just show you a couple of quick ideas for lessons that I did that worked out pretty well. And then I'll sort of rotate out. So each week I would give them sort of a different thing. So the first week we did a thing on cryptography, Alan Turing, and Elizabeth Friedman. And we did one of the CS Unplugged activities about seeing if you could cheat coin flipping. So it's the Peruvian coin flipping activity if you haven't done that. And then you'll notice that all of my work, the majority of the work I had them turn in was reflections. So I did a lot of reflections, a lot of them talking about what they did and what engaged them and things like that. Got some really cool responses, which was really fun. I'm not sure, does everybody, how familiar are people with Puzzle Script? Do people know about Puzzle Script as a thing? Okay, so Puzzle Script is really cool. Let me see. Can you see Puzzle Script on the screen? Did that share properly? Okay. Puzzle Script is this really cool little scripting language that lets you make basically what they call Sobocon puzzles, those box pushing games, and variations on it. So I'll click on one of these. And it brings you to this neat thing. And so you can you play it. They all have kind of the same way to play in that you just hit X and then, oops, hey, come here. Why is it restarting? Sorry, my search is up. And then you use the arrow keys to move around. And you have different rules for like how the game works. So they look really simple. And the cool thing is if you click on hack, you can edit any game that's on here or make your own. And how it works is like the art is all like ones and zeros. So here, like to make a wall, it's dark gray is the 0, gray is the 1. And then I sort of like draw my little box to sort of make that. And then I want to make a map. I do the map by sort of like drawing out representations of it. The code is really cool. So like, so you can see here, like a wall is represented by X, and this is what it looks like. So on my level design, I have X's all the way around. Oh, what's a P? What's an O? Oh, look, an O is this block. The player is a P, which looks like a little guy. So it's really cool. So you just like, it's really simple. All the kids were able to make cool little characters and things like that. Pretty straightforward. And then the code is all like kind of functional. Like it's like, I'm a player and I'm next to a box. And then when I hit like this key, then I scoot the box over and stay with it. Does that sort of make sense? So it's all like relational. And so that little game we played was basically 7 lines of code plus like the art. And so you can get to like some really fast things. And with the kids, because this was, if you go around and you go back to the site, it always shows up new ones. And so the kids would go in, play a bunch of these games, which they thought was fun. And then they would just like hack them and then figure out like, oh, what's the little sequence that does that code, right? So they didn't have to like do everything from scratch. They could sort of beg, borrow, and steal, which was perfect for like a little week activity. You know, I wanted them to like get comfortable exploring a new programming language that was totally different than everything they wanted. And everybody made like a real, you know, simple game basically through trial and error. There was one tutorial I found that was really cool that basically, you know, went through like, you know, a more like step-by-step, this is what this line of code does, this is this line of code does. But a lot of kids didn't even use that. They just played around with that and sort of hacked it together. So that one was really fun. And then I paired it with an activity on paper prototyping. So they came up with like a little box pushing paper prototyping thing. And then they took their paper prototype and did that. So that was a cool one. We did, so that was Puzzle Script. We did some fractal stuff, and we talked about fractals and looked at some things there. The coding check-in was just like a more normal, like skill building classic assignment, just so they didn't like forget C++. They did it on Replit. We did a little activity on, I call it dorking out. It's on Google Dorking, which is how people were Zoom bombing these calls. So it's like all these like crazy searches you can do to like find exposed government documents and really fun things. So that's really kind of awesome. And so I had the kids try to search for weird stuff and see what they could find. And so they got to feel like they were real devious there. And again, like the kids did so much with that, but they also got kind of freaked out about how much like their information was available, even though they didn't think it was out there and things like that. So it really worked well. Then we did something on cellular automata because John Conway passed away from COVID in sort of near the end of the school year. And so we did like sort of a little history of him, and we did Game of Life and played with that. Read an article by that Stephen Wolfram wrote, things like that. But the one I was like the most excited about is the last 3 weeks we did a choose your own adventure unit on interactive fiction. So I started off with a little history lesson where everybody went and played Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and then we found some new interactive fiction. So there's a really cool one if you guys like Zork or anything like that. There's this thing called Counterfeit Monkey, which is like Zork and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy to like the nth level. It's all about all the puzzles you solve by removing letters in the names of objects. So if you think about it, like, let's say you had a boat and there was a boat there and there was a horse, you could be like, I'm going to use my B remover to get an oat. And then you'd like pick up the oat and give it to the horse, and then like the horse would move or something like that. It's really clever how it works. The kids loved it, and it was really fun. And then there's this cool tool called Twine, which I've talked about at some other SuperQuest stuff that lets you create. It sort of has like an HTML-ish style interface, like a lightweight thing that lets you build interactive and nonlinear fiction stories really, really easily. So gave them a little taste of this, showed them what these things were looking at, and then I just let them go for 2 weeks, and I gave them like the simplest prompt ever, which was, oops, wrong one. I need the new, the finale here. And I gave them basically the prompt here. I did a little George Floyd thing because that happened this week. But we basically just said, make a game, make an interactive fiction piece about your experience during COVID. And so the kids just sat down and made these things. And it was like really cool because they did some really creative stuff. It was also like kind of heartbreaking because like so many kids did like the I'm infinitely trapped in infinite repeating like cycle. And so you just really got to see like an insight of what their world was like, which actually really informed a lot of the things I'm thinking about doing this year. And so it was really a good insight into their thing. And so that was actually something that we talked about with the other CTE teachers. Was a lot of people that did creative projects really got into the head of the kids, and the kids really said like I had an outlet for a lot of these feelings that I was feeling. And so that really worked well. Okay. That is, that's everything. So just last slide is if you ever want to email me, I'm just bartlow@pd.code.org because I work with code.org, and that's the easiest email to shoot me something because it's not swarmed with junk mail and or things from PPS that make me angry. And then the other thing is I actually ended up being on a podcast about teaching math, actually, but I ended up talking a lot about the connections between math and CS, and also some more of this COVID teaching stuff. So here's the link for it. It's like 45 minutes, and it's for the Association of Math Teacher Educators. So it's people who teach math teachers. So it's me and some professors from PSU and things like that. So if you're interested in me rambling on for more things, and especially about how math and computer science interact, that's a good link. Okay, that's it. It's late. Sorry, guys.
Hey, thank you, Chris. And that's going to wrap it here. It's a long one, but I tell you, I'm taking notes. I know you all are too. You're going to find something that definitely works for you, with the caveat or the precaution or the disclaimer here, in that, yeah, you have to create your FERPA situation. Yeah, we'll try to provide some resources that says these are FERPA approved, but it's not particularly our job. It's your job in your district. We'll try to provide some information on that. The other thing is I learned that I was required today to record all my Zoom synchronous teaching for the entire year for special ed, blah, blah, blah. And I just panicked because Sherry said before she bailed, it's how legal is it to record the faces of our students and the interaction it's in their space. And I'm thinking that I'm going to go to my IT people and say, help me here, because I think that would probably violate something. So those are precautions. Those are things that you need to go to your IT people. I might have some answers next week. And yes, I will provide my curriculum information next week. I want to finish up Agile, go right to sharing some of your best. We've seen a lot of cool things that have been pushed out here that hasn't been discussed yet. Chris Winnica from Century will have a little bit of time, and I'll wrap up with my curriculum. And again, it'll be full next week. We'll go full 2 hours probably. All good though. I mean, this is great stuff. I'm getting a lot out of it. And any last comments? And we're gonna shut her down. All right, everyone. Great work. Hopefully you picked up something, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.